Have you ever seen those colorful heart rate zone charts at your gym or on your smartwatch? You might have been running so hard on the treadmill that you looked at your watch and realized you are way past your fat burning zone. Did this mean that you didn't burn any fats during your workout? And how many heart rate zones are there really? Are there 3 or 4 or 5? My name is Dr. Yo from ECA Wellness. And in this video, I'm going to go over the real history and science behind targeted heart rate training. So if you're someone that is trying to lose weight and get in shape, and you want to build endurance and performance, I'm going to show you a way to properly use your heart rate to guide you in your exercise and training. So hang tight and let's dive in. The real story about heart rate training begins in the mid-1940s in the eastern part of Finland called North Karelia, where the main industries were farming and lumberjacking. It was here that the physician and exercise physiologist Dr. Martti Karvonen noticed that men from this region were dying of heart disease after returning from combat in World War II. He observed that these men consumed over 6,000 calories per day, consisting of pork fat, butter, salted meats, and fish just to get through their day's work. He theorized that these diets heavy in fats and cholesterol were the reason for these men dying of heart disease. So together with the American researcher Dr. Ansel Keys, Dr. Karvonen published a 12-year study as part of the landmark 7-country study that showed that blood concentrations of cholesterol and heart disease could be reduced with diet and lifestyle changes. While Dr. Karvonen is considered the father of cardiovascular disease prevention and epidemiology, he's also well known for developing a formula to determine targeted heart rate during aerobic exercise. In 1957, Dr. Karvonen published a study that looked at the different intensities of exercise on resting, working, and maximum heart rate. He found that training at an intense level causes a decrease in working heart rate, which is a direct indication of increased peak oxygen consumption and cardiorespiratory fitness. So simply put, the more conditioned and healthier your heart was, the lower your resting heart rate. And this is the reason why elite athletes and runners have low resting heart rates, because their cardiorespiratory systems are so efficient in pumping blood and delivering oxygen. Dr. Karvonen demonstrated that the best way to achieve a healthy cardiorespiratory system was to participate in intense workouts to achieve your maximum heart rate. He identified the threshold at which improvements are seen through exercise as 60% of your heart rate reserve, which is defined as your maximum heart rate minus your resting heart rate. And through this, Dr. Karvonen developed his formula, the famous Karvonen formula, which looks at your heart rate reserve, which is the maximum minus your resting heart rate, times the desired intensity you want to achieve the target heart rate. Although the benefits of exercise were already well documented, these findings were monumental in defining the parameters for exercise intensity that produce tangible results. Although Dr. Karvonen's formula can overestimate or underestimate the exercise intensity in certain populations, it has provided us with a general rule of thumb for targeted heart rate training. Dr. Karvonen initially broke exercise down into 3 groups. Light intensity workouts were 30 to 40% of heart rate reserve. Moderate intensity exercises were 40 to 60% of heart rate reserve. And vigorous or intense exercise, which he defined as 60 to 90% of heart rate reserve. So I'm going to post links to Dr. Karvonen's studies down below in the description section of this video so you guys can get a better understanding and read more about his initial research. And of course, if you guys are liking this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's continue. But what is the big deal about using your heart rate to train? I mean, wouldn't it be easier just to max out every single time you're at the gym? I guess you could say it is a little easier, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're training smarter and efficiently. See, if you max out every single time, it doesn't give your body enough time to rest and recover, and this can lead to overtraining, physical and mental fatigue, and most importantly, it increases your risk for injuries. See, your heart rate gives you valuable feedback on your training intensity and determines how hard your heart is working during exercise. You get different benefits from working out at different heart rate intensities, and by determining these zones, you either burn more fats than carbohydrates or vice versa. And by understanding what happens at each zone, it allows you to develop smarter and efficient training programs to achieve whatever goals you're set out for. Your body draws energy from 3 nutrient sources: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Now, we usually do not break down protein into energy unless we're in a chronic starvation state, so most of the time we're breaking down fats and carbohydrates to provide us with energy. The nutrients all differ in the amount of energy they provide and how quickly they can be broken down to provide that energy. Fats are the slowest source of energy and provide 9 calories per gram. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, are the fastest source of energy and provide us with 4 calories per gram. Because fats are such an efficient form of energy, the body stores any excess energy as fat. The body deposits excess fat in the abdomen, or omental fat, and under the skin, or subcutaneous fat, to use when it needs more energy. Depending on your heart rate intensity will determine if your major energy source is coming from burning fats or carbohydrates. Stored fat or triglycerides are great at fueling the brain and the body during rest. But keep in mind, you need oxygen in order to burn fat. So as your exercise gets more intense and your breathing gets labored and the demand of oxygen starts to increase, your body starts shifting from burning fats to carbohydrates in order to provide energy. So this is why when you're working in that lower heart rate zone and oxygen is readily available, your body will burn more fat than carbohydrates as an energy source. But when you go through an intense workout, your body starts to quickly demand more energy. So there's a shift from the slow releasing fat energy to the fast releasing carbohydrate energy. So the major point is that you are still burning both fats and carbohydrates during all your heart rate intensities and zones. The difference is that the percentage of what's being burned will differ in each of those intensities and zones. See, there's a certain point, and it's usually when your exercising gets very intense and vigorous, your breathing gets labored and heavy, and you're struggling to bring in oxygen, that your body starts using carbohydrates as its dominant energy source. Because remember, oxygen, you need oxygen in order to break fats down, and as you're struggling to bring in the oxygen, it starts to switch to breaking down carbohydrates. So now you guys can see one of the benefits of using targeted heart rate training is that it gives you valuable feedback into how you can optimize your metabolism. So how do you construct heart rate zones, and how many heart rate zones are there? So depending on the literature and the source that you're using, this can vary. There doesn't seem to be a consensus on the number of heart rate zones. So I recommend not focusing on heart rate zones, but looking at the percentage of your maximum heart rate. So now I'm going to show you guys a step-by-step way on how you can easily use your heart rate to calculate your zones and to construct an exercise program. Also keep in mind before any physical activity or engaging in any sports that you've had a consultation and discussion with your physician. Step 1. Calculate your resting heart rate. Your resting heart rate is what I call your minimum heart rate, because it is the amount of blood per minute that your heart pumps while you are at rest. It is the heart pumping the lowest amount of blood because you're not exercising and the demand of oxygen is low. The best time to check your resting heart rate is in the morning before you get out of bed, and especially before you have your morning coffee. You can also check it at any time during the day after lying down for 20 minutes and then checking your pulse. While most fitness trackers can measure resting heart rate, if you don't have one, You can put your finger over your radial pulse and count the number of beats in 60 seconds. Step 2. Now that you have your resting heart rate, you have to determine your maximum heart rate. The best test to determine your maximum heart rate is the VO2 Max test. I've made a few videos on the VO2 Max and I will post links to them in this video so that you guys can have a better understanding on what this test entails. The closer you are to your VO2 Max, the closer you are to your maximum heart rate. According to the American College of Sports Medicine, exercising at 60% of your VO2 max corresponds to 75% of your maximum heart rate, and exercising at 80% of your VO2 max corresponds to 88% of your maximum heart rate. But if you don't want to do a VO2 max test or you're not a candidate for it, there are many different formulas out there that can give you a pretty close estimate of your maximum heart rate. A commonly used formula to calculate maximum heart rate is the classic equation 220 minus h. But this formula is not very accurate because it doesn't take into consideration someone's sex, their fitness level, their leg strength, and their overall health. In fact, a 2001 study by the American College of Cardiology stated that the validity of this formula had never been established in older adults. Other formulas that have more accuracy than the classic equation are the Tanaka equation and the Gulati equation. So unless you are a professional athlete and you want that high level of precision of your max heart rate, you can go with any of these equations and you should be able to get a fairly rough estimate of your max heart rate. But like I said, the gold standard is the VO2 Max test. So I recommend, if you want that high level of precision, to get a VO2 Max test done. So if I were going to use myself as an example, if I were to calculate my max heart rate according to the classic equation, it would be 220 minus 40. My max heart rate according to the classic equation would be 180. My max heart rate according to the Tanaka equation would also be 180. And when I did a VO2 Max test, my max heart rate was at 179. Step 3. Now that you've determined your resting and maximum heart rate, you can now calculate your training intensities as a percentage of your maximum heart rate. There are two different methods that you can use to determine your training heart rate zones. One is you can use a percentage of your maximum heart rate, or two, you can use a percentage of your heart rate reserve. If you guys remember from earlier, your heart rate reserve is your maximum heart rate minus your resting heart rate. Using heart rate reserve to calculate your training heart rate zones is a little bit more accurate than using your maximum heart rate, but it involves a little bit of math. So for simplicity's sake, I recommend using your maximum heart rate to determine your training zones. So what are the zones and the percentages that I use? Like I said earlier, don't be focused so much on the zones, but really look at the percentage of your maximum heart rate. I use 5 zones to construct my workouts and my exercise programs. So if you guys use 4 or 5, it doesn't matter. Focus on the percentage of your maximum heart rate. So I will share with you guys now the 5 heart rate zones that I use in my own exercises and training, and the corresponding percentage of max heart rate for each of those zones. Zone 1. This is the warm-up and recovery zone, and it is 50 to 60% of your maximum heart rate. This is the zone where you do your warm-up and cool-down periods. I recommend doing dynamic stretches before working out to get your heart rate up and get your blood pumping. Some of the best warm-up exercises are high steps, butt kicks, lunges, and jumping jacks. Zone 2 is the moderate intensity zone, or the fat burning zone. And this is 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. In this zone, the body's demand for oxygen is not that high, so most of the energy needed is coming from fats. Since the body derives its energy in this zone by burning 85% fat and 15% carbohydrates, Working out in the zone helps your body with being efficient in breaking down fat. You should be working out in the zone for about 30 to 45 minutes or longer depending on how fit you are. My recommendation for exercises in Zone 2 are light jogging, walking up a flight of stairs while you're at work, or doing some lightweight or low resistance bands exercises. You should be able to have a normal conversation during Zone 2 training, and I think this is the reason why for so many people this doesn't feel like exercise. They've been conditioned to think that the more intense and vigorous your training is, the more benefits you're going to get. But Zone 2 training is very important for fat utilization, and what that means is you're training your body in how to break fats down efficiently and better. More importantly, Zone 2 training increases your cellular mitochondrial density, and this is really important in clearing lactic acid, which is going to improve your endurance and performance. Zone 3 is the aerobic zone, and it is 70 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. Now, this is the zone I call the comfort zone because this is where you break a sweat, you finally feel like you're working out, but you don't have any of those muscle aches and those burns you feel after an intense workout. This is also the zone that's commonly referred to as the cardio zone in a lot of smartwatches and those heart rate charts at your gym. Many people love working out here because even though they exercised and got a sweat going, they didn't feel any of the muscle pains and soreness from any of the lactic acid buildup. It has also been suggested but never proven that Zone 3 is where endorphins are released from the brain, causing you to have that exercise high. In Zone 3, your body's demand for oxygen is increasing, and most of the energy that's broken down is evenly split between 50% fats and 50% carbohydrates. But overtraining in Zone 3 is the reason why so many people will plateau, or they say they hit the wall and they're not getting any more benefits from exercising. See, because they just keep on coming back to the zone. It feels comfortable. They had a workout, they broke a sweat, the endorphins are kicking in, but they haven't really pushed their body to a level that they're starting to see any of the benefits. There are some people that advocate skipping out on Zone 3 training entirely, but I recommend incorporating some Zone 3 work into your training regimen because there are a lot of benefits behind it. Your blood vessels increase in size, you see an increase in cardiac output, and a decrease in heart rate, which all lead to improvements in your VO2 max, and your lung capacity and ability to take in more oxygen with each breath also improves with Zone 3 training. Zone 4 is the anaerobic zone, and it is 80 to 90% of your maximum heart rate. Now, this is the zone that feels uncomfortable, your breathing is very labored, and you start to feel the burn. The body's demand for oxygen is really high, and most of the energy needed is coming from carbohydrate breakdown. Your body is deriving 85% of its energy from carbohydrates and 15% from fats, thus you're forming more lactic acid from the breakdown of the carbohydrates. Zone 4 training includes sled exercises, high-rep medicine ball slams, heavy weightlifting, boxing, and kickboxing. Zone 5 is the VO2 Max zone, and it is 90 to 100% of your maximum heart rate. In this zone, the body's demand for oxygen is incredibly high and immediate, so 90% of the energy is supplied from the fast breakdown carbohydrates, and only 10% from the slow breakdown fats. Zone 5 is when you max and go all out, and most people can only be in this zone for about 45 to 60 seconds. So both Zone 4 and 5 training improve your lactate threshold and VO2 max through interval training, and both zones are extremely stressful to the body. Zone 4 training can usually be tolerated for about 30 to 45 minutes, and Zone 5 training about 6 to 8 minutes depending on how well conditioned and fit you are. So now that we've gone over heart rate zones, percentage of maximum heart rate, and how to calculate all of this, how do you apply this to the gym and your workout routine? I mean, is it better to be working out in zones 4 and 5 to improve your lactate threshold and your VO2 max? Or is it better to be working out only in zone 2, which is the fat burning zone? Well, the answer is not that simple because it depends on what your fitness and exercise goals are. If you're like many people who wants to lose weight and get in shape, then total calories burned is what your goal should be. See, the higher intensity your exercises, such as in the 80 to 90% range of your maximum heart rate, the faster and more efficiently you're going to burn calories. And as I mentioned, total calories burned is how you're going to lose weight. But if your goals are to improve performance and endurance, then spending more of your workouts in zone 2 is going to help your body with fat utilization, which will delay the onset of an inefficient anaerobic system and increase cellular mitochondrial density, which is going to help with lactic acid clearance. But here's the thing, most of us that are going to the gym and working out are not only trying to lose weight, but we're trying to improve our performance and our endurance. And this is the reason why I said it is very important that you incorporate all the different zones into your training schedule. See, when you focus just on one or two of these zones, you're losing out on the benefits of the other zones. And by incorporating all of it into your schedule, you're not only improving your endurance and performance and losing weight, more importantly, you're optimizing your metabolism and how you are utilizing your fats and carbohydrate breakdown. So what is the best training schedule that you could get on? There isn't a right or wrong answer to this question. You just have to find a system and a schedule that works for you. Now, me personally, I recommend that if you train hard on a day, just make sure the following day is either a zone 2 or a rest day. You got to keep in mind that rest and recovery is really, really important, and just maxing out all the time, you're not going to have any benefits, as we just went over. So I'm not a professional athlete, nor am I a professional runner, but I do go to the gym about 4 to 5 times a week. So my training schedule is on day 1, I do my zone 2 training. Day 2, I do my zone 4 and 5 training. Day 3 is rest day, because remember, it's very important that you give your body enough time to rest and recover after those intense zone 4 and 5 workouts. Day 4 is when I do my zone 3 training, and then day 5 is zone 2, and then that cycle repeats itself. So there's so many different ways you can make an exercise schedule that works for you. But as long as you're covering all your heart rate zones and you're giving enough time for rest and recovery, you're going to not only lose weight and build endurance, but you're also going to develop a healthy cardiovascular system in a safe and sustainable way. Variety in your workouts will keep you fresher mentally and physically, and also prevent your body from plateauing from overtraining and exercising. So I know this video was jam-packed with information, so if you guys have any questions, send me a message in the comment section below or on Instagram at ECA Wellness. And also, I would love to know what you guys are using for your exercise and training schedules, because there is so much to study and research on this topic. And if we can all come together and bring our collective minds to the table, we can better understand how the human body works. And of course, if you guys like this video, hit that like button, click on the bell so you get notifications when I put out a new video, and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And until the next video, ciao.